Welcome to About Mansfield, your audio newspaper. I'm Steve Casillo, broadcasting from the Cellmark Studios, along with the About Mansfield news team. Colleen Daniel is in Studio West. This is the May 7th, 2025, 270th edition. Something's in the air. It's in my nose. Coming up today, it's Mansfield News, Talk, and Information.
And a little later in the episode, you will have a chance to win a $25 gift card to a Mansfield restaurant of your choice with our Mansfield Trivia Question, courtesy of Joe Jenkins Insurance.
Let's take a look at the stories we're covering this week.
Mansfield voters decide city council and school board races. Runoff set for place 5.
NASA astronauts share insights with Mansfield ISD students from the space station.
First 2 measles cases of the year in Tarrant County wind up in Mansfield ER. Mansfield man sentenced to 30 years for child sexual abuse material.
Hawaiian Falls opens the summer season with a special promotion for moms. And in sports, all eyes are on the Legacy Broncos.
And in the talk segment, Steve talks in studio with first-time Boston Marathon runner Silvia Duncan. We are Mansfield's only source for news, talk, and information. This is About Mansfield.
Hey there, it's Luke from Cool Hand Electric. Are you tired of dealing with plugs or lights that just won't cooperate? Well, don't fret. Give us a call. Worried about power outages or surges damaging your precious electronics? We've got you covered. Whether it's a whole house generator or surge protection, our solution-oriented Cool Hands are ready to tailor the perfect option that suits your needs and budget. At Cool Hand Electric, excellence is still cool.
Cool Hand, Cool Hand, Cool Hand, where excellence is still cool.
Are you ready to create unforgettable memories? Picture this, an enchanting event venue nestled amidst breathtaking landscapes with panoramic views right here in Mansfield. The Grandview Event Center is the perfect setting to bring your vision to life. From intimate gatherings to large-scale extravaganzas, the Grandview has flexible spaces to accommodate any occasion, be it a graduation or school function, art exhibition, or birthday or anniversary party. Book your next unforgettable experience at thegrandviewmansfield.com. That's thegrandviewmansfield.com. The Grandview Event Center, where memories are made and dreams become reality. Book your event today.
Hi, I'm Dr. Tondra Grimble with Stim It Up Sports, and you're listening to About Mansfield.
This portion of the news is brought to you by the Grandview Event Center in Mansfield.
Voters around Mansfield made a big statement at the polls on Saturday, but before we get to the election results...
To Mansfield, welcome to the International Space Station.
In a special live event Monday morning, NASA astronauts aboard the International Space Station answered questions from Mansfield ISD STEM students, offering a unique glimpse into life and work in space. The conversation ranged from personal inspiration to complex scientific and engineering challenges. NASA flight engineer Nicole Ayers shared that her path to space began with a passion for flight and math, which led her through the Air Force and eventually to NASA.
For me personally, I've always had an affinity for the sky and for space, and I knew I wanted to fly from an early age. And so I think that's just kind of what led me to going into the Air Force and being a pilot. You know, I really wanted to fly the shuttle. The shuttle was still flying when I was growing up. So kind of knowing that path existed is what caused me to want to go to the Air Force Academy. I loved math growing up as well, so that was just kind of a natural path for me as well. And then the Air Force led me to NASA.
When asked why the ISS will eventually be deorbited, Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency Commander Takuya Onishi explained that leaving the massive structure in a higher orbit could pose risks to other satellites and spacecraft, emphasizing the importance of a controlled descent.
The International Space Station is the biggest human-made structure in space. So if we move it to a higher orbit and leave it there, it could endanger other spacecraft and satellites. So that's why it is so important for us to safely deorbit the station once it retires.
Both astronauts discussed experiments conducted in microgravity, including protein crystal growth, which helps in developing treatments for diseases like Parkinson's and cancer. They also highlighted studies on plant growth, radiation effects, and 3D printing, essential research for future missions to the Moon and Mars.
It is possible to print the tools in space. And also, when we get to the moon or Mars, it is very, very important to have that kind of capability, because for those exploration missions, our cargo supply will be super limited. So it's super important to be able to produce some tools or any kind of hardware at that place.
Asked about the challenges of daily life on the station, Commander Onishi described the reliance on advanced systems like life support, water recycling, and satellite communication. Ayers noted how limited resources foster creativity and conservation, skills she plans to bring back to Earth. Students also inquired about career opportunities at NASA. Ayers encouraged interest in all STEM fields, including environmental, mechanical, and software engineering, noting that teamwork and problem-solving are just as critical as technical expertise.
But we also want chemical engineers, mechanical engineers, software engineers. We need any type of engineering at NASA, not just engineers. We need scientists, doctors, pilots. We want a broad variety of professionals so that we can think critically and solve those problems as we move on to the moon and on to Mars.
The event closed with words of encouragement from local STEM leaders, inspiring the next generation to pursue science and exploration. The astronauts expressed gratitude for the thoughtful questions and said they hope to someday meet the students back on Earth.
And Colleen, let's get to the news that everyone's talking about, the local elections. Mansfield voters were loud and clear in making their choices in several key races for city council and the school board over the weekend. 5 candidates were elected or re-elected with landslide decisions, while one city council seat is headed to a runoff. City council candidates Julie Short and Lori Williams, along with the school board incumbents Craig Tipping, Bianca Anderson, and Kezia Farrar, adopted a low-profile campaign strategy this election season, having declined media interviews and avoiding public forums, and opted instead to hold a number of meet-and-greet events. And the voters responded.
In the Mansfield City Council races, the unofficial results are: Place 1, Mayor, incumbent Michael Evans retained his seat with 63.7% of the vote over challenger Julie Short. Place 2, incumbent Tamara Bounds was re-elected over Lori Williams, winning with 59.7% of the votes. In the Place 5 special election, no candidate received a majority of 50% plus 1 votes. Melissa Perez led the 4-candidate pack with 37.6%, followed closely by Todd Simmons at 36.7%. They will face each other in a runoff election scheduled for June 7th. Lance Hood and Eric Rozak trailed with 16% and 9% respectively. Turning to the Mansfield ISD school board races, in Place 3, challenger Jason Thomas won with 59% of the votes, defeating incumbent Craig Tipping. Place 4, Ana Alicia Horn unseated incumbent Kezia Valdez Farrar, earning 61% of the vote. While in Place 5, Jesse Cannon II defeated incumbent Bianca Benavides Anderson, taking in 60% of the votes. All results are unofficial until canvassed at the next city council and school board meetings.
In a series of closely watched local elections, candidates in traditionally nonpartisan races ran on platforms with strong conservative and religious themes. Campaigns were marked by heated rhetoric and character-related allegations. Voter turnout surged 2 to 3 times higher than the average municipal election, but still only reached about 8% of voter turnout in Mansfield. Despite high-profile efforts to boost support, including a rally led by Republican leaders Alan West and Beau French, GOP-endorsed candidates were defeated in all 11 races across Tarrant County's largest cities, Fort Worth, Arlington, and Mansfield. That includes seats on city councils, school boards, and the TCC board, as well as Keller ISD. In Mansfield alone, Republican-backed candidates lost 5 of the 6 races, the 6th resulting in a runoff. As of this report, no losing candidates have reached out formally to concede to their opponents, although Kezia Farrar congratulated Ana Horn in a social media post, concluding with, quote, "While I am, of course, disappointed in the outcome, I know that God closes one door, He opens another. I am trusting in His plan, and I'm excited to see what He has in store next.
Tarrant County has confirmed its first 2 measles cases of the year. Health officials say both cases are within the same household, yet it's not known how or where the individuals were exposed to the virus. Tarrant County Public Health reports the 2 people visited the Methodist Mansfield emergency room on East Broad Street while contagious. That visit occurred between 8 p.m. April 29th and 3 a.m. April 30th. Health officials are now working to identify additional exposure sites and contacts. More detailed information is expected later this week. Unvaccinated or immunocompromised individuals who were at the emergency room during those hours are advised to monitor for symptoms until May 20th. Measles symptoms include fever above 101 degrees, a cough, runny nose, red eyes, and later a red, blotchy rash that starts at the hairline and spreads down the body. The virus can remain in the air for up to 2 hours after an infected person leaves a location. Anyone who develops symptoms is urged to stay home, isolate, and call their healthcare provider before going to a medical facility. Public health officials say measles is preventable through the MMR vaccine. 2 doses offers strong protection. Vaccines are available through doctors, pharmacies, and at 6 county immunization clinics. Statewide, the outbreak began in January in Gaines County near Lubbock and has since spread to several counties, including Rockwall, Denton, and now Tarrant, bringing the number of cases to over 650. Angel Biasatti will have more on measles in Methodist Mansfield News to Know, coming up later in the features section. A 30-year-old Mansfield man has been sentenced to 30 years in federal prison after pleading guilty to producing child sexual abuse material. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Texas, Kevon Carter Hickman admitted to picking up a minor from a local middle school after months of online communication. He then took the child to a motel in Arlington, where he recorded and distributed explicit material. While out on bond and awaiting trial on state charges, Carter Hickman reportedly solicited another minor online and created additional material. The case was investigated by the Arlington, Stephenville, and Mansfield police departments, along with the U.S. Secret Service and Homeland Security investigations. Carter Hickman pleaded guilty in January 2025.
Hawaiian Falls Water Park will open its 2025 season on Saturday here in Mansfield. The North Texas attraction is launching the season with new events and promotions. Opening weekend events include a Mother's Day promotion on May 11th and 12th. Moms and grandmas will receive free admission with the purchase of a child's ticket. The offer is sponsored by Methodist Mansfield Medical Center. Hawaiian Falls is known for its Hawaiian-themed family-focused setting, offering water rides, wave pools, and summer activities. It's playoff time on the Diamond. We'll talk about it because sports is next.
I'm Philip Washington, Chief Investment Officer of Stonehill Wealth Management and host of the Wealth Building Made Simple podcast. First book I read in college was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and it changed my life. And since then, I've read tons and tons of books on money. And what I've done is taken those lessons, simplified them, and I talk about those lessons on my podcast, Wealth Building Made Simple. So come hang out with us. We're on every major platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube. Wealth Building Made Simple.
Hey, it's Steve Casillo, and are you ready to make your voice heard? Want to bring out your ideas to life through captivating conversations and engaging visuals? Look no further than Podcast Mansfield Recording Studio, your one-stop destination for award-winning audio and video podcast recording. Equipped with cutting-edge microphones, crystal clear audio recording, and high-definition cameras, we're here to turn your ideas into engrossing content. But it's not just about the equipment. We're dedicated to bringing out the best in your content. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, We're here to elevate your podcasting game. We'll even help you with intro music, transitions, voiceover, and that professional polish that sets your podcast apart. So whether you're into interviews, storytelling, or simply sharing your expertise, Podcast Mansfield can help bring your podcasting dreams to life. Visit podcastmansfield.com. Podcast Mansfield, where creating your podcast masterpiece has never been easier.
At Methodist Mansfield Medical Center, we've been caring for our home team for over 15 years. Today, you'll find award-winning physicians on the medical staff, advanced neurosurgery, a Level 3 trauma center, critical care for newborns, and comprehensive orthopedic care. Methodist Mansfield, delivering the care our friends, neighbors, and home team depend on. That's community, and why so many people trust Methodist.
In sports, Legacy High School continues to make headlines in both baseball and softball postseason play. Let's start with baseball. Legacy High's baseball team defeated Timber Creek in 3 straight games over the weekend. The Broncos now advance to the area round, where they will face the Midland Legacy Rebels in a best-of-3 series. Meanwhile, your Mansfield Tigers were swept by Keller in a 2-game series, knocking them out of the playoffs. Turning to softball, the Legacy Lady Broncos swept Midland in 2 games and now move on to the regional semifinals, where they will face the Denton Geyer Lady Wildcats in a best-of-3 series beginning on Wednesday. Elsewhere, the playoff run for Lakeridge has come to an end. It ended on Saturday, falling to the Permian Panthers in a 3-game series. And that, my friends, is a look at sports. If you have a comment about the show, the news, whatever's on your mind locally, the good, the bad, the ugly, you want to talk about the elections, got something you want to get off your chest, you can reach us by voicemail at 817-435-2938. This coming Monday, May 12th, is National Limerick Day, which honors the birthday of Edward Lear, the English author and poet known for popularizing the humorous 5-line poem called The Limerick. These witty verses follow a specific rhythm and rhyme scheme, AABBA, poets and songwriters know what I'm talking about, and are often playful, nonsensical, or downright silly. It's a fun day to get creative with language, share a laugh, and maybe even try writing your own limerick. Like this. There once was a girl named Colleen, a news anchor, sharp and serene. With a wink and a smile, she makes headlines worthwhile. It's the coolest thing you've ever seen.
Coming up after the break, we turn the page to the features section.
I'm Angel Biasatti, and today we're talking about a disease that has been making headlines, measles.
In this week's Cocktail of the Week, we're bringing the garden to your glass with a crisp, effervescent sipper that combines floral notes, botanical spirits, and the cooling essence of one of summer's favorite vegetables.
We are Mansfield's only source for news, talk, and information. I'm Colleen Daniel, and this is About Mansfield.
This portion of the news was brought to you by the Grandview Event Venue in Mansfield.
Hey there, it's Luke from Cool Hand Electric. Are you tired of dealing with plugs or lights that just won't cooperate? Well, don't fret. Give us a call. Worried about power outages or surges damaging your precious electronics? We've got you covered. Whether it's a whole house generator or surge protection, our solution-oriented Cool Hands are ready to tailor the perfect option that suits your needs and budget. At Cool Hand Electric, excellence is still cool.
Cool hand, cool hand, cool hand, where excellence is still cool.
Congratulations to Joseph Watson, who knew that Julian Field and his wife Henrietta were Mansfield's first hoteliers by operating an inn on Broad Street in the 1860s and 1870s. When we come back, this week's trivia question. I'm Colleen Daniel, and this is About Mansfield.
Hi, this is Joe Jenkins with Joe Jenkins Farmers Insurance, specializing in auto, home, commercial, and life insurance. I was born and raised here in Mansfield, Texas. We're active in the community, and Mansfield's a town we really care about. Our office has over 30 years' experience in the insurance industry, and we're passionate about what we do and about customer service. For a free quote, please visit our website at joejenkinsinsurance.com or give us a call at 817-472-6058. Once again, that website is joejenkinsinsurance.com.
It is time right here, right now for the highly coveted, wildly popular About Mansfield Trivia Question. If you are the first person to email the correct answer to trivia@aboutmansfield.com. You will receive a $25 gift card to a Mansfield restaurant of your choice. It's brought to you by Joe Jenkins Insurance. Whether you're looking for homeowners, auto, commercial, or any other type of insurance, Joe has helped Mansfield area residents understand the insurance coverage that best fit their needs since 2010. You can find him on the internet at joejenkinsinsurance.com. Colleen, put a stamp on it.
Well, Steve, it was Benjamin Franklin who appointed the first Postmaster General in 1775, and thus the U.S. Postal Service was born. This week's trivia question is, what year did the first post office in Mansfield open? Email your answer to trivia@aboutmansfield.com. Again, in what year did the first post office in Mansfield open? Good luck, and thanks to Joe Jenkins Insurance for the gift card.
I'm Yulani Lashley, President and CEO of Texas Health Hospital Mansfield, and you're listening to About Mansfield.
Welcome back to About Mansfield, your audio newspaper. Let's open up the features section. Angel Biasatti is here with information about measles, what they are, and what to do if you get them. In Methodist Mansfield, News to Know. Angel?
Measles. It's a highly contagious virus that can lead to serious complications. But the good news is that it's preventable. To help us break down the facts, we're joined by Dr. Mary Weaver, a highly respected board-certified family physician at the Methodist Family Health Center in Lake Prairie. Dr. Weaver, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Angel. It's a pleasure to be here on your podcast.
To begin, will you explain to our listeners what exactly measles is?
Absolutely. So measles, it's also known as rubeola, but pretty much everyone knows it as measles, is a viral infection, and it primarily affects children, although adults can get it as well. It's a viral infection that starts off with kind of a flu-like symptom, so fever, cough, runny nose, and watery red eyes. And then after a few days after that, maybe even up to 2 weeks after, that's when you get the rash that everyone thinks of when they think of measles. So that red, blotchy, spotty rash that starts at the top of your head and then goes down your body kind of thing. Most people are very ill from measles, but it's for most, it's kind of like the flu, but much worse. But what makes measles worse than the flu is you can have very serious complications, including pneumonia and brain swelling called encephalitis. And then in some cases, you even die from measles. Texas has actually had 2 deaths from measles, in an 8-year-old girl and a 7-year-old girl. So it's can be a very dangerous disease.
So how can people protect themselves from the measles? Is there a way to prevent it?
They came out with a measles vaccine in the early 60s. And before this vaccine, the U.S. saw millions of cases each year. And the measles was responsible for tens of thousands of deaths. Thankfully, after the vaccine, which is known as the MMR vaccine, which contains measles, mumps, and rubella, after that vaccine, the numbers reduced dramatically. And we actually were considered eradicated from measles in the 1990s. But as vaccine numbers went down and more international travel to places where measles wasn't eradicated, we've started to see measles come back in certain communities. The best and most effective way to protect yourself from measles is to do the MMR vaccine. It has been around, like I said, for over 60 years now, and it's very effective at preventing measles. And it is a routine part of immunization. So you typically get the first dose when you're 1, and then you get the second dose when you're 4 years old, 4 or 6, right before you go to kindergarten. So it is very effective. It reduces your risk by 97% after the second dose. And for adults who are not sure if they've received the vaccine, there's a couple different options you can do. One is you can get the vaccine. It's very safe. It's very effective. It doesn't have a lot of side effects besides your arms being sore. So it's very easy to get a booster. You could also do blood work with your doctor to check to see if you have immunity by doing a thing they're called vaccine titers. And so that would give you an idea if you needed to do the vaccine or not, kind of thing. But if you don't have access to do titers, then getting an MMR vaccine is very easy to do to help reduce your risk of measles. And actually, if you know that you've been in contact with somebody who's had measles, you can actually get a vaccine within 3 days of that interaction, and it will prevent you from getting measles, like from actually getting sick from the measles. It's one of the best vaccines we have, kind of thing.
How exactly does measles spread, and how easily can it spread?
So measles is one of the most contagious diseases that we know of. It spreads through the air, so in respiratory droplets. So when somebody sneezes or talks who has been infected with measles, those particles hang in the air, and it can hang in the air for 2 hours, even after a person has left the room. So those respiratory droplets just hang in the air for that long. That means that you don't even have to have direct contact with someone who's sick to catch it. So especially if you are not vaccinated and you, for example, Great Wolf Lodge had recently had a person who was infectious there. So if you had even walked through the hallway where that person had coughed or sneezed or was talking and laughing, even if it's been 2 hours, you could potentially get measles from that. And if you haven't had the vaccine, you're 90% likely to get measles walking through an environment like that.
Are there any other precautions people can take to avoid getting the measles, especially if they're traveling or have been exposed?
Like we talked about, vaccines the best thing you can do, but staying home and avoiding others can really help the spreading the virus. So if you feel like you're coming down with something, it's really important to stay home and not go to, especially, public places where you're going to come in contact with lots of people.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your expertise, Dr. Weaver. I know this information will help our listeners stay informed and safe.
No problem. It was my pleasure. And I hope all of our listeners can continue to stay healthy and help our community stay healthy as well.
Well, remember, measles is preventable. And by staying informed and vaccinated, we can help ourselves and our communities stay safe. I'm Angel Biasatti reporting for the About Mansfield podcast.
Shaken or stirred, you know it's going to be good as Brian Certain serves up a drink that brings your garden to your glass in this week's Cocktail of the Week. Brian?
It's that time again when we're going to explore another delightful libation. And as we welcome the warmer weather and spring blossoms, I thought it would be perfect to kick off our Garden Party Sippers series, cocktails designed for those beautiful outdoor gatherings that define the season. Today's feature is the Garden Cucumber Spritz, a cocktail that captures the essence of springtime in a glass. This elegant sipper combines Hendrick's gin, fresh cucumber juice, elderflower liqueur, a splash of Prosecco, and is garnished with fresh mint. What makes this drink special is how the botanical notes in Hendrick's gin, which already features cucumber and rose petal infusions, are amplified by the fresh cucumber juice. The elderflower liqueur adds subtle floral sweetness that whispers rather than shouts, while the Prosecco brings an effervescence that makes this truly refreshing on a warm afternoon. But as always, don't worry about taking notes as I'm giving out the ingredients and instructions. They're always posted on bourbongospel.com every Wednesday. How to make it. To create this at home, you'll need 1.5 ounces of Hendrick's gin, 3/4 of an ounce of fresh cucumber juice. You're going to just simply peel, seed, and blend a cucumber and then strain. 1/2 ounce of Saint Germain elderflower liqueur, 2 ounces of chilled Prosecco, then fresh mint leaves for garnish, and of course, ice. What you're going to do is you're going to combine the gin, the cucumber juice, the elderflower liqueur in a shaker with ice, shake gently until chilled, then strain into a wine glass filled with fresh ice. Then top with the Prosecco and garnish with a sprig of mint and a thin cucumber slice. Serving suggestion. This cocktail shines when served in a large wine glass to capture all the aromas. If you're hosting a garden party, maybe consider setting up a do-it-yourself spritz station where guests can customize the level of Prosecco or even substitute sparkling water for those wanting a lighter option. In closing, the Garden Cucumber Spritz is the perfect opener for our garden party season. It's light, it's refreshing, it's a little sophisticated without being pretentious. It's what I imagine the well-dressed guest at Gatsby's parties might have been sipping if they were gathering in 1925. And until next week, this has been your Cocktail of the Week. But as always, I'm open to hear your take and your input. You can reach me at brian@bourbongospel.com. And until next week, as Mark Twain said, too much of anything is bad, but too much whiskey is barely enough. Reporting for the About Mansfield podcast, I'm Brian Certain.
We're back in 60 seconds with Steve's interview with first-time Boston Marathon runner Silvia Duncan.
Imagine a city where innovation knows no bounds, where dreams take flight, and the future unfolds before your very eyes. Welcome to Mansfield, a beacon of growth and a testament to vision. In the heart of Mansfield, a remarkable transformation is underway. But it's not just about the physical landscape. It's about the spirit that drives us forward. A spirit of collaboration that bridges cultures, a spirit of entrepreneurship that fuels prosperity, and a spirit of community that binds us as one. Mansfield is more than just a place. It's a canvas where diversity paints the picture of progress. From art festivals that ignite creativity to tech hubs that redefine boundaries, this city celebrates every voice, every passion. Mansfield, where growth knows no limits and the vision is limitless. Brought to you by the unstoppable spirit of the Mansfield Economic Development Corporation.
Hi, I'm Amanda Rogers, managing editor of the Mansfield Record, and you're listening to About Mansfield.
Welcome back to another segment of About Mansfield. I'm Steve Casillo as we make the transition from news to talk. And in the studio today, she's probably the most fit person I know. And we're going to find out why and how that plays into this interview. I've known her for many, many years. Great. I don't know. Are you a friend?
We are friends.
Okay, we are
definitely
friends. Good. All right. Good. Silvia Duncan is in the studio today. First of all, Doctor, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
You and the reason we're having you here today and this whole fit thing. You ran the Boston Marathon.
I ran the Boston Marathon, and yes, it's been a dream of mine since I was 7 years old.
So you've always been a runner.
Yeah, I guess so. I might not have identified as such in the beginning, but I've been running, since I was in grade school. I think I have a positive association with races because I grew up on a farm in the Midwest. And, race day, my mom would sign us up for these 10K races. And that was like the day you would have a long car ride, and then you wouldn't have to pull weeds in the garden or shovel manure or do some laborious task. You could just enjoy the day.
So you grew up in rural, you mentioned Illinois before the podcast, rural Illinois?
Yes, it doesn't get more rural. I mean, there were 86 people in my high school, entire high school, four grades. I grew up in Chadwick, Illinois. The population at that time was 650 people. I think it's down to 400 and something now. So very rural, but they did have these 10-kilometer races all over the place. And that's what we would do sometimes on a Saturday. And you were sure to stop at a Dairy Queen on the way home. I mean, what's not to love about race day? So, yeah.
For me, I think a 10K would be stopping at the Dairy Queen somewhere along the race line.
And that would also be nice.
There you go. So first of all, we're recording this interview on April 28th. You ran this last week.
Yes, exactly a week ago.
How are you feeling?
Monday. I feel fabulous.
And then physically, how are you feeling?
Also fabulous. I haven't run since Monday. I've gone on a couple of long walks, rode my bike, but yeah, I haven't really run other than that little segment when you opened the door for me and I had to.
That was a little trot.
That was just a tiny trot. Yeah,
you did the 100-yard dash from the front door to my door. Is the Boston Marathon the first marathon you've run?
No,
because that's right. Because you have to qualify.
You do have to qualify, and I would say, the Boston anybody who's done a marathon and decided, that was horrible in a masochistic sort of way. I need to do that again. Probably has set their sights on the Boston Marathon. This was my ninth.
Your ninth marathon.
Yes.
What was your first marathon?
My first marathon was the Cowtown. That was 2012. And, ignorance is bliss. But the Cowtown is not easy. I mean, clearly there's much harder marathons out there. But the Cowtown, it's hillier than you think, I would say. And but, your first marathon hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't met – I'm sure there's some people that trained – adequately, but I've not met anyone that their first marathon didn't cause some pain.
They talk about hitting the brick wall somewhere like at mile 20 or something.
Yes, somewhere around there.
Now, does that happen? You're 9 marathons in. Does that happen
every time? No.
Every time? No.
It does not. I would say my best marathon was my fastest marathon. I mean, clearly Boston was my best marathon, but my fastest marathon was Dallas 2021, and I managed to run the entire thing. And that sounds obvious, but a lot of times, you hit that wall, you have to walk, you're cramping, you're really just struggling. But I maintained the same pace the entire marathon, so that was a personal accomplishment.
Yeah.
But this Boston Marathon, I had a goal in mind, and it was to just enjoy every single step. And I did. I did.
Before we get into the let's talk about those steps. First, let's go back to when were you notified that you qualified?
I believe that comes it would be a couple hours before I made that the hotel reservation. I could tell you specifically, but I believe it was September of last year. As soon as you get that email, you find accommodations, unless you're fine with, staying in New Hampshire or something.
Yeah. So September, you immediately hopped on, made your reservations.
Yes.
How many people run the Boston Marathon?
This year it was 32,300 and something.
Wow.
And I was kind of digging around. I'm just like, I mean, that is really a lot of people. And I'm that person that, I get to the gate at the airport and I'm like, there's no way all these people are going to fit on the same plane. It's mind-boggling. But some of the other world majors, and there's 6, now 7, but there's 6 marathons that are considered majors. And they all, I started digging around. Just
Chicago.
Yes,
New
Chicago
York,
and New York.
London.
Berlin.
And I thought there were only 4, so you tell me
Tokyo.
Tokyo.
Yes.
Okay.
And they've recently added Sydney.
Huh.
And it's interesting because New York, Chicago, Berlin, London, all of them last year had over 50,000. I mean, London had 56,000 and some change. Tokyo is the only one that last year, or this year, it was February this year, 37,700 and some change.
Wow.
So, these are big.
That's huge. So is it your goal to run all of the majors?
All the majors. That's a good question. I would say
That's why
no,
I'm the
but yes, you ask good questions. I have a really good friend, period. This happens to be an amazing runner. And she's like, wow, I really want to do Sydney. And I'm like, yeah, let's do Sydney. And well, my mother's side of the family is German, and I'm like, well, Berlin would be fun, and then after you start looking around, you're like, well, I've in New York, the New York Marathon. If a friend of mine sent me an infomercial for the New York Marathon, and he said, if anybody ever asks why you run marathons, just send this to them, and you don't even have to say anymore. And I'm like, yeah, watching that infomercial just brought me to tears.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really effective. So
if you qualify for the Boston Marathon, does that qualify you for all the other majors?
It does not. It does not. And they all have their little quirks about what it takes to get in. And I was, trying to really nail down what's the hardest one to get in. Like, for instance, I would say the New York City Marathon is harder than Boston to get into. Certainly in my age group, qualifying times, you have to be substantially faster to get into New York.
Do you feel you are fast enough right now for New York?
I am not.
You're not?
I am not.
Okay. So there's more training involved.
I suppose so. We'll see.
So let's go back to September. You got the email. You made the reservation. Was there, because you've already run 8 marathons, so was there training in mind that I need to set a schedule to reach a goal before going to Boston?
No and yes.
No and yes.
No and yes.
It depends.
So I actually had another. 2025 is not even halfway over, and I have checked off 2 boxes on my list of things to do, and the mainstay of my training up until February 1st was to run an ultra, like my to date longest ultra. And so that involved not so much speed work and running fast, but just a lot of miles.
For our listeners, define what an ultra is.
Technically, an ultra is anything longer than a marathon. And many marathons, including Dallas Marathon, Cowtown Marathon, both of them have like an ultra category, but it's like 50 kilometers. So you're just running like 31 point something miles. And that's, that's another 5 miles. And trust me, like another 5 miles is a long, long way when you're really fatigued. But I will say most ultra runners don't consider someone else an ultra runner unless they've run at least 50 miles, I would say.
Right.
So that's more. But technically speaking, 31 point something is an ultra. But I signed up for my first 100-mile run, and that was eye-opening.
Wow.
I learned some things.
100 miles is, to me, 4 miles an hour is a good pace.
Yes. Yes.
Well, actually, 4 miles an hour is a good pace for walking.
It got down to hobbling. I think it was more like 3 miles an hour.
But that's okay. So at 4 miles an hour, 100 miles is 24 hours.
Oh yeah, and that's often a solid goal to have. Maybe not for your first 100-miler. It took me 27 hours, 16 minutes. I don't even know.
Wow.
So it was more than 27 hours.
An entire day.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
When you put your goals, your sights together for Boston, and you started training, were there any setbacks?
There were a few.
Let me tell you this.
Yes. And I will say a lot of people do run their Boston Marathon as if, they're trying to qualify for another race. But I think I'm in the majority where many of us, like, I have a jacket, and it says on the arm, "Boston is my victory." That was this year's jacket. And that sums it up. Boston is my victory. I worked hard to get here, and I'm just going to enjoy this experience. So
it didn't matter when you were racing.
No,
it didn't matter whether you placed first or last or somewhere in between.
There were just in my age group, women 50 to 54. There were 1,304 people in my age group. And over 1,000 of those women finished in front of me, and 200 and some odd were behind me. And I couldn't have been happier. Again, that was the most epic experience. But the setbacks, yeah.
Okay. Can you give me a specific, just one?
Just one. Okay. In 2018, I would say it was marathon number 3. I ran the Dallas Marathon, and I got third in my age group. Not that that has any merit for qualifying for Boston, but they have these cutoff times. If you don't make a certain time, like don't even bother submitting your times. But if you do make the cutoff, give it a go. Every now and then, like everybody gets in. But that hasn't happened for years. So I believe the cutoff was maybe, we'll say 3 hours, 45 minutes. And I ran it basically 4 minutes and 54 seconds faster than that. So that was my little wiggle room. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, okay. And then I got let me explain that Dallas Marathon is late in the year. It's December.
Yeah.
So it doesn't qualify you for the following year. I qualified for Boston 2020. Well, Boston 2020 didn't really happen.
Yeah. This thing called the coronavirus, which we never call it that anymore.
We don't. But so there was like a virtual run, but it didn't. It wasn't the Boston experience. So for 2021, they said, now you can use your qualifying time. And I'm like, oh, good. I worked hard for that. However, we do not want as many people. So they tightened the fields by 5 minutes all across the board. And that meant that I missed qualifying by 6 seconds. Or possibly you could say by a month because the Boston Marathon is in April, and I was turning 50 in May. But on that day in April, I was still 49, so I had to adhere to those standards. So they basically took it away from me.
Oh, those.
Yes. So that was a bummer. So
let's talk about the week leading up to the Boston Marathon. You are now, I would assume you're pretty pumped.
I'm super psyched.
How early? How many days in advance did you fly into to Boston?
And I did drag my feet on making my flight arrangements because I'm like, am I going to make this like a vacation? Or I ended up flying in early Saturday morning, and I met one of my besties there, who I also met at Leadership Mansfield.
All right.
And Michelle Cozine met me in Boston at the airport. She flew in from Tennessee. And I texted her as I connected because I went with like the cheapest Southwest flight I could find. And I said to Michelle, this is just like Hotter Than Hell, which is this bike ride in Wichita Falls. As you leave DFW and you're driving north, you start seeing bicycles in every car. And the closer you get to Wichita Falls, like now it's every vehicle has a bicycle. So I connected through Baltimore and I saw jackets, the Boston Marathon jackets.
Sure.
And there's an etiquette. And if you've run multiple Bostons, then the one you wear to the race is your first one. And I saw this gentleman with a really old jacket. It was like 1980 something, and I was just already starting to get hyped up on Saturday morning, just seeing all these jackets get on to the connecting flight with me. And then of course you get to Boston Logan Airport, and they're everywhere, all the different years, and it's amazing. It was fun.
Talk about the night before. You're getting ready to. What was the meal the night before the Boston Marathon?
They
always talk about.
I don't even know. Carb loading,
pasta and blah blah blah.
Carb loading. I don't know. I can't even. Well, first off, my bestie Michelle. I mean, I know I should have gone to bed early, but I think I was just so excited.
Sure.
And we chatted late into the night. But, the thing about Boston, which makes it interesting and different, well, there's many different things, but you start late. It's not the usual crack of dawn situation. Like I started at 11 a.m.
Oh, wow.
The wheelchair, there were so many things. The wheelchair people started first, and 2025 was the 50th anniversary of allowing wheelchairs to do the Boston Marathon. There were so many things that made this particular Boston Marathon really amazing. It was perfect weather. The Boston Marathon is notorious for it could be anything. It could be sleeting and hailing, and that's happened. It could be stupid hot, where really, danger to a lot of people that aren't used to the heat, especially that early in the year. And but this was perfect. It was perfect.
Blue skies,
just not even 100% blue, like a little overcast.
Maybe in the 50s.
Yes, I want to say I started at like 52 degrees.
There you go.
And it was just pleasant. Like it almost got a little warm, but then the clouds came. It was perfect.
You're running the Boston Marathon. If I recall on social media, you shouted in glee at everybody who made eye contact with you.
Yes, I was positively giddy. I mean, it was really. I was like, I'm going to Boston. I mean, it was just amazing. And I ate way too many things. Like there's cute little kids on the side of the road, just waving a Twizzler, hoping you'll grab it. And I'm like, okay, I would, and I'm taking all these popsicles and all the things. But it was just, I know you know what I'm talking about, Steve. You're a musician, right? So music feeds your soul. You play by yourself for the joy of it, but you also perform in front of a crowd. And if that crowd is looking you in the eye and they're singing the song along with you, it is a high. It is over the top.
The first time I played in front of an audience, when I left the stage, it was a dizziness.
Yes.
It was a natural high of what are the
dopamine, all the things. Yes.
That I had never experienced before, but I wanted more.
Yes, exactly. And I think, the epiphanies one gets, but again, I run, by myself, and it feeds my soul and I enjoy it. But running, I'm not exaggerating, the entire trip from Hopkinton to Boston, so it's a point A to point B race, and it is wall-to-wall people, both sides of the road, and they're cheering you on vigorously, and it's this symbiotic thing, and they're excited, you're excited, and it just reverberates, and it's over the top intense, and it's like no other experience. So now I get it. Now I get why musicians will continue to, do, I'm sure there's times when, I don't know, but it's over the top when you have people really cheering you on.
But it's not just musicians. Athletes.
It goes across.
Baseball players making it to the show, or
a preacher in front of the pulpit. Anytime you have people that are just connecting and just that good juju. We call it kind of race day magic, but the race day magic at Boston Marathon is over the top.
Was it race day magic at Heartbreak Hill?
I didn't hardly notice because there's there were these little kids lined up, and you just got to give them high fives because, like, they give you more good juju than anybody, I think. And so it's interesting. They talk about the Newton Hills, and I learned all about them from my running buddy who's done Boston multiple times, and she's telling me about these. But again, I am just smiling like a idiot the entire time. It wasn't until they do have a banner that says, "Congratulations, you've summited Heartbreak Hill." I'm like, oh, okay. Because, I mean, there's all these little tiny rolling hills in between. Although Boston is net downhill, and it certainly felt more downhill than uphill. But again, I felt like all the stars aligned. Even the group I was running in, there's a roar of cheering all the time, but every now and then it crescendos to a point and you realize they're yelling out, "Sarah!" And they're like, "Oh, that must be Sarah beside me." And she runs over and gives them all hugs. And, so I just kept getting these extra bumps of happy, good vibes. Heartbreak Hill. And again, I didn't go out hard. I was, this sounds really weird, but like I didn't really want it to end. I mean, it was so much fun.
You were there for the experience and not there for the race.
Exactly.
So you ran in a pack. Then
sort of, yeah. You kind of get spread out. You pass people. Everybody's passing me in the beginning because that's the one thing. Like, don't go out too fast in Boston because it really is downhill, right. and they put you in corrals with people that have your same qualifying time. And so they're hyped up, you're hyped up. They're playing really good music right before you start. I mean, you're just buzzing. And so you can't help but run faster than you wanted to.
They don't release 36,000 people at one time.
Nope. Okay. Yeah, it's a major rollout. It's very easy to get caught up in the crazy.
We are talking with first-time Boston Marathon runner Silvia Duncan. We are now beyond Heartbreak Hill, and we'll pick up part 2 next week. In the meantime, this is the place where you'll hear the latest Mansfield news, talk, and information. Until then, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, engage, share, love, support this podcast if you haven't already, so you never miss an episode. It's free and it's easy. Head on over to our website, aboutmansfield.com. Enter your email address right there on the homepage. We will never send you any spam. My promise to you.
About Mansfield is recorded at Podcast Mansfield Recording Studio. Hosts Steve Casillo and Colleen Daniel. Moment with the Mayor feature Michael Evans. Methodist Mansfield News to Know Angel Biasatti. Cultural Arts Calendar Tim Roberts. Cocktail of the Week Brian Certain. Post-production editing, mixing, and mastering Steve Casillo and Andrew Miner.
This podcast is copyrighted by Podcast Mansfield Recording Studio and is intended for the private use of our audience. Any other use of this podcast without written consent is strictly prohibited. We thank you all for listening on behalf of the entire news team. I'm Steve Casillo, going back to bed, and this is About Mansfield.